Hey YouTubers, Scotty Wrenches here again, back at it in the old Sienna minivan. These are known for eating up this right front tire badly, so just gets tons of wear over here, has tons of weight on this side of the van. Now because of that, when you cross roughly 200,000 miles like we have, you also will get sometimes some noises from the front end, like usually a warbling noise or sounds like your tire's out of balance, so you'll get like a rolling woof 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 noise that you can't really capture on the video because I tried, but this is very similar to the sound that we heard in the back of the VW, which if you want to listen to that, that's on my channel as well. But what this basically is going to require is replacing the whole front hub, or at least the front wheel bearing. I went with the whole front hub, and I'll explain that in just a moment. Stay tuned. Okay, so as we get started, as always, start with your jack underneath, get your jack stand supporting on something firm. What I do is get the jack stand up, then my jack is actually loose, but it's still up in place just in case something shifts. I got a couple things here holding up for me. All right, so basically what we're going to replace is this whole assembly minus the brake portions, because we're just going to remove and remount those. But basically it is this whole assembly that's bolted in here and down to the back. So it's going to require that I remove axle nut, caliper and caliper bracket, rotor comes off. That's pretty much going to get us down to the bare hub on the front end. We're just going to hang the caliper up, so we're not going to break lines there. And then out comes the axle from the back once that's loose. Tie rod end has to be loosened and taken out, and then ball joint from underneath, which has those 3 nuts down there, actually 2 nuts and a bolt, really holding that in place. Now I'm again doing this the simple way, so I'm going to replace the ball joint while I'm at this, because then I literally can set the new ball joint in and just pivot the whole assembly back up, run the bolt through. Should be a quick, easy fix. Should be always being the key words. One of the things that you want to be careful of is that these are actually left-hand and right-hand parts. So get a look here, you'll see again, tie rod end attaches to the back end, so we're going to need to have that toward the back side. Caliper goes on the front. So you want to make sure that the part that you bought is actually for the correct side. This is a passenger side, so you can see caliper bracket pins are going to be, or bolts, going to go through here. That's the main portion up top there, and then that's where we're going to have our tie rod insert to, so that's on the back side here. So this matches up, and then all the way down at the bottom there we have our pin for, or peg for, ball joint. Now again, what we're replacing is actually this portion here. This is the reason that we're replacing it. It's because that bearing on my hub is shot. So yes, you can just buy the bearing and the new hub assembly, but that basically costs about $5 less than the whole assembly. And my time is certainly worth more than $5. Okay, so as I said, we're going to also replace the ball joint while we're at this. So this is a new Moog ball joint that very simply is just going to come up here, and we're going to bolt that in place while we have the spindle off. That way, again, I can just rest this up in once that one's off, set it in place, start building things back up, as opposed to having to hold the weight of this trying to line things up. So we're going to assemble that momentarily. So first things first, I'm going to break this bolt loose. You can see now that it actually looks pretty clean compared to the previous portion of the video. I've actually taken a little break from doing this job because I didn't have the socket that would fit this. This is a 30mm 12 point, also called a triple square, but I'll just call it a 12 point. So in the meantime, what I did is actually put some automatic transmission fluid on the threads and on this bolt, and I kind of ran it through that groove because that was up last time this was up, and I just kind of let it soak in there, and it's amazing what ATF does. Cleans rust right off, resurfaces, kind of, it's corrosive, so just to let you know, but you can use that for cleaning up threads, old bolts, things like that. If you're ever doing exhaust manifold work, I highly suggest wetting down the nuts and studs with some ATF about a week before you're going to do the job. Let it just sit on there, bake on there. It will make those nuts come right off of the studs so much more cleanly. So, all right, so that's going to be first. Second will be removing caliper here. Then it will be caliper bracket bolts back here. Then we can take the rotor out of the way. We'll be able to then have easy access to getting tie rod off. This sensor needs to come out right back here. That's actually ABS sensor. So hopefully that'll come out real easily. The wire is literally just kind of set in place here. So it's just kind of clipped on with a plastic clip. So just be careful not to break that. Don't bother removing it until you have the actual sensor out, because otherwise you're just putting weird tensions on things. So, and then big bolts here and little bolts underneath on those ball joints, and I'm taking out the whole assembly as I showed you. I'm going to build the other assembly with the ball joint on the side here, because there's no sense trying to do that in place, and I'll show all that to you. So here we go. Alright, so I started with taking off the caliper bolts here. This one came out nicely, just using a little 1/4-inch impact. Went down to the bottom. That one did not want to move. That one required using a 17mm wrench to lock in on the pin here, to lock it in place, and then banging on it with the 14mm socket, and now we can take that out. So that's caliper ready to be removed there. So that can come out of place. We'll just set our hardware aside. I'm going to hang the caliper up off of the suspension spring. Okay, so while we're here, we want to just make sure that these slides actually move. So what I've done is just gone ahead and put the caliper bolts back into the pins or slides, and then I'm just going to make sure that these guys will actually do what they're supposed to do. So they're going to slide, rotate just a bit, just make sure that that's all moving easily, because otherwise I'm going to have to come back here and re-grease the slides so that my brakes don't bind. There's my caliper hung with a relatively short bungee. Try not to put a whole lot of tension on the line here. And again, don't use a bungee that's so long that everything is just hanging in your way. Okay, so caliper's out of the way. Next, I'm just going to hit the axle bolt. So I got my big Ooga set on high, and I've already kind of broken it loose, as you can tell. I'm just going to spin that guy off. There we go. Again, that's the difference that using ATF on there does. That bolt looks pretty spanking new. Okay, so for the caliper, okay, got the big bolt off, caliper's out of place. Caliper bracket, this is 17mm. I'm just using a large breaker bar. We're just gonna knock down on it. Remember, righty-tighty, because that's going out backwards. I've already gotten this one loose. Just, again, lock it onto it. Use a little bit of torque. Bam. Then we're going to lock on down there. Do the same thing. Alright, so once I got those bolts kind of loosened with the breaker. I just used the 17 and the 1/4-inch drive, backed them out, put them back into place so I know which hardware goes where. There's our caliper bracket. Set those over with our pads out of the way. Now we just have to remove the rotor, which is probably going to take a little bit of work because it's pretty well corroded there. It'll take a few taps to do that. It doesn't have any set screws holding it in place, so it's just going to take some tappies. And then that brake sensor can come out. I'm going to just kind of thread that back up and hang it with the blue off with the tie rod end ball joint. Moving on. Just a quick aside, while you're moving around, running, grabbing different tools, things like that, you can actually shoot a little lube, I use PB, in through these 2 set screw holes around the hub itself. I even did a little bit into the stud holes so that will actually leach its way behind, which helps to break that corrosion loose. I went ahead and already hit all the mating surfaces here because these bolts are going to have to go. These are going to be 22s up top there, but we're going to get to that. That's going to be our last things that we remove. Those are big ooze. And on the ball joint, there is actually a through bolt or a through screw right here. So I went ahead and hit the back end threads here, and then once we kind of get that lube on there, it's a good thing to just tap a little bit on it, and you'll watch that lube get drawn down through because of the vibration, and that helps you to break that bolt loose much more easily. Now, it's always nice when you can to use the 1/4-inch drives to take off those nuts, but if you're like me and working with a jack stand, there ain't a whole lot of room to get your 1/4-inch impact under there, so sometimes you got to do it the old-fashioned way. So there's the bolt, 2 nuts. Notice that they have some white residue on them. That's actually a Loctite that was on these. The new ones come with a Loctite, so don't forget to do that. You can see now that the ball joint is separated and loose, so I can literally just push the lower control arm down and be able to lift this up. Again, a few more bolts to go, and we're ready to knock this thing loose. Alright, so I used my mini persuader just to give some taps around the center here to try to break it loose. This rotor is still pretty well stuck on. Now, this is what these holes are for. Thread your bolt into those splined or threaded holes. Lock on. Drive rotor off. There you go. So that's the simple way to remove this thing. All right, so we're getting down to it now. I've already removed the 10mm bolt that was through this hole, and fortunately my ABS sensor came out very easily, unclipped from the side there. I have that just threaded up with the hanger. We'll keep that out of the way. These big bolts have got to go. Tie rod end has to go. So now I'm underneath. Just have to get the cotter pin out here. We're going to loosen that nut. Whack right there with our hammer. That should shock it loose, so I can just set this up and out of the way. And then we're on to the big bolts. Now, I just want to see a show of hands. Who out there hates to have to undo these cotter pins when they're so tight on there like this? Can't even get a needle nose on that bent side. All right, raise your hands. Let me see them. Oh yeah, I see you in the back there raising your hand. Okay, so we have cotter pin out. We have castle nut off. I'm going to just strike right here with my persuader. Again, it should just vibrate this thing loose. Do not hit up on your ball joint this way thinking that you'll knock it out. All that's going to do is crush the end of the ball joint and mushroom out these threads. You will never get your nut back on if you do that. So you can see that we're separated there, and that actually did not take the 30 whacks that Molly Hatchet took. So, anyway, or maybe that was Lizzie Borden. I don't know. One of those crazy girls in the past that hacked up their parents. Nasty. Anyway, Tie rod ends out. Now we just have to break the big mothers loose. All right, so I'm going with that. I'm going to use the van's weight to my advantage technique. So got my 22 locked onto the bolt, breaker bar there. Got my extension here. I'll bring that out, line up, and then just do a little squat. Oop, maybe I'm going to run out of room on this one. But the top one's already loose just by doing that. So I just did a squat underneath there, lifted right up, broke it loose. No worries, mate. Okay, so once they were broken loose, I just put my impact on this side with the 22. I had to use a wrench on the other side because otherwise it just spins the bolt. Again, if you notice, little white Loctite on here. So just note that because you probably want a bit of that on there just so this stuff doesn't come apart when you're driving down the road. All right, I'm gonna knock these guys out using the persuader again. This should just roll out. I'll be able to undo my axle at that point, just push that through and then lift it all out because the ball joint's already unhooked. So just a quick note, in trying to remove the top bolt, it comes out and it runs into the wire for the ABS sensor. So you don't want to do that. There's a 12mm bolt here that's holding the wire and the brake line to a bracket. Just back that out. You can swing those guys out of your way. And now we've got free and clear. Okay, so I leaned it out from the top first, had to lift up from the bottom and then slide it off the shaft, which means it's going to have to go back on exactly the opposite way, which is shaft in first, set the ball joint in place, spin it up into place against the shock absorber there. The shock absorber does have just a little bit of tension on it, so in order to get those bolts out, it's not up down, it's actually in out, just to let you know, because sway bar link gives you a little tension. So you can take those bolts out just by pushing in a little bit and you'll be able to slide them right out. So as I said earlier in the video, you just want to be sure that the piece that you have is for the correct side. There's the wind kicking up again as usual. So if you notice, tie rod end goes there, ball joint here, up to the shock damper here, brake caliper, ABS sensor right there. So all built, looks the same. Again, this is the one with the bad bearing. That's why we're replacing this whole hub assembly. So again, I just went ahead and left this in place because it was easier to do it that way, and I'm going to replace it anyway. And you can see that thing is way too loose, like just nothing given. So and when it was under load, I get some creaking and groaning on the steering. I think the ball joints are shot, so I'm going to replace both sides on the ball joints, but I don't have to do the other what do you call this thing? Hub, because the other hub seems quiet again until this one's quiet, and then I might drive down the road and go, hey, guess what? Driver's side's also shot. We'll see. Okay, so I have the new ball joint mounted into the hub assembly. I just need to bend my cotter pin there, and then I'm ready to set this back up in the hole. Okay, so that was a little easier than I thought. I basically slid onto the shaft, set the ball joint, the two posts into the lower control arm, and then just walk this up into place. Now, here's where we're going to run into a little difficulty, which is the lower control arm has actually kind of retracted up, which makes this all sit much higher, if you notice, than where that shock is. So I got to do something to get that a little bit lower, which means I'm going to need some body weight here. Okay, now you can see that the top hole is not lined up. I've got the bottom nut through or bolt through just so I can hold it in place. I'm coming down to the ball joint area, and you can just see not quite lined up, so we're going to snug these to pull that down flush. Then I should be able to put that screw or that bolt back up and through, because that's just not going to line up at this point. And then once I have that, it's a matter of just walking this whole assembly in just a hint. Of course, we're going to do that to line that into place as well. Kind of should be able to just kind of drop that in anytime. I think so. Anyway, it's just reassembly time. So you can see that we got that all lined up, bolts in, nuts are on. These are all torqued to 94 pound-feet of torque. Okay, so I've placed the tie rod back into place, gotten the 17 put on. That goes on at 36 pound-feet, and then new cotter pin through so that next time I come here I can get stumped by that darn thing as well. Anyway, sometimes when you're putting your tie rod in, you'll find that as you're going up onto the stud that the ball inside of the tie rod will spin a bit. So if that's the case, you're going to have to actually like hang down on your tie rod end just a little bit so that you actually put a little bit of tension on it. That'll get it seated a little bit more into the knuckle here, and that'll hold it still so you can tighten in properly. Okay, so I'm just running into a bit of a problem of getting that top area to line up. So what I think I'm going to have to do, and I actually need to see I've whacked on it a little bit with a hammer to try to drive it into place. I think I'm going to get myself a C-clamp, go around both sides here. We're going to catch on to that. We're just going to C-clamp it in, get our bolt passed through, let that hold it in place, and I'll line up the bottom one as well. I'm going to leave the bottom one out for right now. We'll see. Again, making mistakes so you don't have to. All right, in order to get that top one lined up, actually the key is put the jack underneath the lower control arm, bring it up, and you'll get it lined up there. So you're just gonna have to bring it all together. It pulls. I did have the bottom one in place, not tight, but just bolt in place. And then I just jacked up and it literally just walked itself into place, kind of settled there. So there you go. No C-clamp needed. Okay, so we're lined back up there, got our nuts on. Those went on with all of it. I basically just used the impact and knocked them on there because they're supposed to be up around 217 pound-feet, which is the same as this one, 217 pound-feet. But again, you're gonna need more body weight. Don't forget to set the detent into the trough here, so take a full tang or a pick or something and knock a dent into that. That just prevents it from wanting to walk itself off. You can see I've got the rotor set back up in place. I've used 2 lug nuts just to hold it flush on because our caliper bracket is next to go on. I've already rehung ABS sensor, brake line, caliper still hung up there, everything's tight down here, ABS sensor is bolted into place. That literally takes like, a little bit of hand pressure. Don't over torque that one. It's like 71 inch-pounds, which is like 6 pound-feet. Like, don't go crazy. Just needs to be held in place. And then this just clips onto, just like it was in the beginning. It kind of just straddles the new part. All right. Going to hang the caliper bracket now. So those are the 17s that get hung on the back here next. Okay, so caliper bracket bolts in, calipers rehung, rotors in place. I've dropped my pads in. Now I just need to drop my caliper down and then snug up my caliper pins into the slides. Kind of wish that one was a little freer, but they're moving. So I'm going to leave them be because I actually just did the brake pads, as you can probably see. Those are pretty new. I did those, I don't know. I think it was end of last summer. Anyway, all right, up with the caliper. Okay, so we're pretty much buttoned up now. Calipers hung, bolts tight, pads in place. Rechecked all of our bolts here. Everything's torqued down to spec. Got that locked in, knocked in the detent. You can see it bent in there at the bottom. Basically, all I have to do now is hang the wheel. So that's what goes on next. 79 pound-feet of torque on those lug nuts. So this is how you replace that front hub assembly. Not so bad once you kind of know that you need to actually get a little jacky underneath here to get those guys to line up. Again, little tricks. So, hope you enjoyed this one. As I say always, keep the old dinosaurs running. I'll look forward to seeing you again on Scotty Wrenches. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Drop me a comment or two. I always respond.